Hey guys and girls, y'all have been after me for a while to do another bank fishing show. Fishing off the bank, talking about where to fish off the bank, what types of fish off the bank, what things you want to look at. So I'm over here on my home lake 10 killer, which I lived in 10 killer since I was 16 years old until I moved down to Twin Eagle Ranch 20 years ago. So I lived at Lake 10 Killer a long time. I know this lake really well. It's a beautiful lake. It's cold out here this morning. I mean, really cold, but it's supposed to get pretty nice this afternoon. Close to, well, let's say in the 60s, maybe middle 60s if we're lucky. But 10 Killer is a perfect lake to fish off the bank because you have a lot of places to fish. One of the places is parks. There's a lot of parks on 10 Killer. And this right here is one of the prime places to start. All the parks have boat ramps. Boat ramps are excellent. Let me tell you why, because, well, I'll tell you why later. Hang on to that. I'll tell you why later. But this is a great place to start. And there's a lot of baits you want to use. A spinnerbait is good. A little crappie magic jig is really good. We'll probably use that also. A little crankbait. Square bills might be better than a deep diving because of the fact you're fishing off the bank. You don't want that bait going down deep, and then as you get in closer, it gets shallower and shallower. When you're in a boat, it's exactly opposite of that. So a square bill crankbait is a good one to try. But we may throw a deep diver too because the fish may be out a little bit, and we'll talk about that. But let's get down there and see if we can catch something. Okay, we're going to be going to several places on 10 Killer. Boat ramps, and there are at least one, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four boat ramps. There's some boat ramps out on the point here also, and we'll drive out there and talk about those a little bit too. But boat ramps are definitely one of the first places you want to try. And if you got a lake that's got a lot of parks on it, where you can go from park to park to park, you're going to find lots and lots of great fishing area. Now, the only thing about fishing around a park where people are camped is the fact that a lot of the people that fish around the park. In fact, I'm going to show you one out here in a minute, and I'll show you where I fished when I was 11 or 12 years old. And it's a great bank fishing plot if you can find one to look at. I know of a couple of them on this lake. But what you want to do if you're going to fish the boat ramp is the very first thing you want to do is fish the boat ramp. Fish the boat ramp itself. And what I like to do on a spinnerbait, and one of the things about a boat ramp, of course, it goes down, it goes in the water, it goes out there and it ends. Where it ends, where the lake's down low, people when they power load out, some areas they don't even allow you to power load, but in the south pretty much you can about everywhere. But you want to throw right straight out from that boat ramp, and you really are looking for that place where the boat ramp ends out there. So when we get out there where the boat ramp ends, that's an excellent place for the bass to be laying them, especially that's a little drop off. They like to lay right around the edge of that rock, and they're in a small drop off is what they are. Also, you want to make sure that you fish the edges of the boat ramp for the exact same reason. I don't know how far that boat ramp goes out there. It goes out pretty far though. I mean, they got all the boat ramps going out where they can handle high water, low water, whatever. But you got this edge on it. You see this little edge I have right here? Now, as you get out into the water, this becomes more pronounced, so this becomes another place that bass like to lay at. So if you're gonna fish your spinnerbait, I'm gonna get out here, I'm gonna throw down, I'm gonna let that thing down a little deeper. To be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised I didn't catch a fish right here. Now, the best parks and the best boat ramps to fish will be areas where they have fishing tournaments, where they have bass tournaments. So if you know where some of the local tournaments are held at, those are the areas that you're going to be best because they turn loose a lot of fish, generally right there in that area. Now, the other thing that happens at boat ramps is that a lot of people, when they go out fishing, they might want to go out and try to catch them a mess of fish. They catch, I'm just bumping rocks right there, that wasn't a bite. But they catch one or two or three fish, and they get in. They don't have enough fish for a mess to feed the family, so they go ahead and turn them loose. They turn them loose at the boat ramp. So that's why there's usually a lot of fish hanging around at the boat ramp. Now, as I kind of look up here, I see that I've got a great spot since I'm by this point that makes a little point right out here. I've got a great place that I can come and run my spinnerbait down the bank. I look over there and there's a beautiful Ranger boat over there with a big Mercury motor on it. I've got a place here where if you can walk out on any little point, you'll be able to parallel the bank just like you would if you was in a bass boat. If you was in a bass boat, you'd be out there throwing like straight up in front of you like that. It's exactly what I'm doing with this spinnerbait. A spinnerbait is excellent to fish off the bank. Ironically, one of the places that you can catch them when you're around a park is around somebody's park boat. I had fished a tournament over on Bull Shoals one time, years and years ago, and my pattern was to get around campgrounds like this campground right here, and a lot of people had their boats parked around. and the bass would actually get up under the back of the boats, and they would use that as their cover because the water was real clear. The bass were wanting to get shallow, but there wasn't a lot of shallow water cover to get in. And so I got to fishing and running a spinnerbait just around. Now, I'm out in the boat when I was doing that, running a spinnerbait around the back of a guy's boat, just like his boat sitting right here. That's great cover for a bass right under his Mercury motor. And here's the other thing about doing something like this is when he comes down here and goes fishing, and they're sitting right up there watching. How y'all doing this morning? But he comes down here and goes fishing. He's not going to fish under his motor right there. He's going to back it up, fire his motor up, and go fish someplace else. So I actually found a pattern where I was catching fish underneath boats that were parked up on the bank around campgrounds. And I finished in the top 10. I think, if I remember right, I was like 6th place in that tournament. But again, you can do that off the bank as well. The only thing you want to do is, if you're fishing boats that are parked on the bank and you're fishing off the bank, don't spend a lot of time around their boat because they might get kind of suspicious and think you're messing around with some of their stuff. Oh, looky here. We finally caught a fish, and it's a giant. He's about the size of my spinnerbait. Now, that happens off the bank as well. Sometimes you don't catch a very big one. And I know that right now, we got the camera way back there. Y'all can't even tell I have a fish. But I do have one. It's about 6 inches long, and it's a bass, large bass. This lake's got a lot of Kentucky bass in it too. We might catch some Kentuckys today. But now, if I was fishing, I'm not going to do it just for standpoint of time because we're going to hit a lot of areas. If I was out here fishing off the bank at Pettit Bay, I would definitely go clear to the end of this. The very end is going to have some fish in them right now because there's going to be shad in there. You want to watch when you're fishing off the bank where the shad are. If you're seeing shad, schools of shad, like there's some right out there. I can just barely see them dipping in the water. You can go ahead and throw out there. See those shad dipping in the water out there? Those are small shad. You want to go out there and throw out in them. A good bait, a lipless crankbait is good to throw out there. Obviously a spinnerbait. You can throw a spinnerbait any depth of water. That's a great thing about it. Let's walk back this other way and let me show you another thing that you'll find at most boat ramps, especially here on Lake Tenkiller. Show you something that will give you some good places to fish too. Okay, here's the other thing I want to show you that's really around all the boat ramps here on Tenkiller. They got little piers where when you launch your boat, you can pull up there and pick up the car driver, the truck driver, whoever dropped your boat in, and they make excellent places to fish too. Now, you can obviously go out and fish off the pier, which is a lot of people do, and some piers that are there only for loading and unloading. They don't allow you to fish off of them, but you can fish around the bank, and many of them are close enough that you can reach with a cast. So you can throw a crankbait out there and bring it around the bottom of that. Get hung up on the pier, you can just walk out there and get your bait undone. But again, you want to fish the edges. You can see how pronounced this edge is. That's a nice little ledge out there on the edge of that boat ramp, so you want to run your bait right down the edge of that. I didn't get too close to the edge on that one. The wind blew my little red man spinnerbait off to the side. But here, the other thing that you have around places that's got piers is a lot of times, and like here on Tenkiller, they've got them built out to handle all different kinds of lake levels because this lake level gets real high and it also gets low sometimes. So you got poles and pipes and stuff in the water, plus you got a floating structure that you can fish around out there. So another great place to fish off the bank. I put a nice rock here for me to stand on. The rock just about dumped me in the lake. It just about dumped me in. It's 30 some odd degrees out here this morning. Cold feet would be bad. Jimmy, stay off the rocks, buddy. Woo-hoo-hoo. The thing about it, you fall in off the bank. There's some places here you can fall in pretty deep water. I'm going to actually show you one of those here in a minute. Oh, mercy. I just about went in that water. I mean, I wasn't going to fall down or anything, but my tennis shoes would have been full of water. Okay, this is one of the Cooks and Bend ramps, and this was close to my home. I fished hundreds of hours. I've walked these banks right here and caught, and there's no telling how many fish. This is the boat ramp. You got the same situation you have at the other boat ramp that we was at a little bit earlier, just a few miles down the road. But one of the things about it, when you come to this Cooks and Bend campground, you have a tremendous amount of places you can fish. I mean, you can spend 2 or 3 hours here and not fish the same place twice. This is the first ramp when you get to Cookson Bend. There's another ramp out on the point, and it's probably 200 yards around there to it. And then you can go fish that point all the way around, all the way around. In the fall, we walk that bank where that wind's coming in like it is today and catch giant sand bass. Do it in the springtime also. This is a boat ramp, but now this thing's got some unusual characteristics because you see that little rock jetty out there? That's one of the best places to bass fish if you're in a bass boat. And you can fish it just as easily from the bank as people do in a bass boat. We got a really tough bite today. I don't know why. They're not biting very good at all. You got all these big boulders you can walk on. And it's got rocks out there on that point. And that's really, really good. Now, you know, when you're fishing off the bank like this, most of the people that fish off the bank throw as far as they can out in the middle. You're bass fishing, you want to fish the bank. But now, here's the other thing. It doesn't hurt to throw way off out in the middle. It doesn't hurt to do that occasionally. So you want to fish both. You want to fish, a lot of times if I come in here and fish in a boat, I'm not going to fish off out there. So I might miss some fish that's out there if I was in a boat. But on the bank, you can do both. You can fish right close to the shoreline, but just make sure you fish up in front of you, or you can throw out in the middle. Guy's looking over here and he said, that cat said, no, oh, there's one right there. That guy looks over at me going by and he said, the cat sitting over there fishing off the bank. Bet he wishes, look at that guy jump. Bet he wishes he could be out here with me in this bass boat. But he saw me catch a fish. These are the kind of places you want to hunt out. And these are the kind of places where that's a pretty nice little bass right there. Nothing wrong with that fish at all. Not a giant. But this is fishing off the bank. Now this is a hard place to fish, you know. If it was summertime, the guy could just walk out there around those rocks and stuff. And this is kind of tough walking. But that wind coming in here, just an outstanding place to fish. Now you have to catch all kinds of fish here too. You catch white bass. When the white bass get to feeding on shad when they're blown into these areas, Chris and I, when we were in high school and college both, come down here every evening when we get out of class, if we wasn't having to work. Come down here every evening and walk these banks. Wouldn't even bother about putting the boat in the water. I had a boat when I was 16 years old, so I've always had boats. But we'd come down here and walk these banks, and right here, and another one was in Dry Creek, where the Candy Creek boat dock is. We'll drive around to that area and show you that too, maybe a little bit, because you have a couple things there that's real important from bank fishing. But you could find these on any lake. We're just going 10 killer because I know all the places to drive around to real quick and easy, and that have a chance to catch fish. But we fished a lot off the bank. Of course, when it's bitter cold, a lot of times that's when those big white bass are in on these banks. And down here at Cookson Bend, this is not the area for white bass right here. This is the area for largemouth bass. But going around that point, and all the way around to that other boat ramp, you probably have a quarter mile, maybe a half a mile that you can walk that bank and fish. And for the white bass, what you want to do, and now you can go that way too. Now there's picnic tables, great place to come down and camp out and fish off the bank and just have a ball and catch a lot of fish too. Let me show you something else about this particular boat ramp here at Cookson Bend. This is the first boat ramp, but it's got a unique feature that makes it really special and gives you a good chance to catch fish. Let's go look at it. All right, here's the really thing that makes the Cookson Bend campground area really special is this little pocket right here. Now, I don't know, I think that probably, particularly during the season, this wintertime right now, you can see we got one boat here at the ramp, but you can actually get right here and you can stand on that rock or stand right there and do the exact same thing that I'm doing. But I'm standing here on this ramp, on this dock, and I think that they don't want you fishing these. I'm not 100%, but I believe they don't want you fishing these off these piers. And that's a safety deal. They're not being ugly or anything by not letting you fish off of them, but it's a safety situation because people are putting in and taking out, and they just don't want these docks messed up, and they don't want people swimming off of them and things like that. But during the wintertime, there's hardly anybody out here. In fact, I'm kind of surprised there's one boat at that ramp. But I'm gonna walk out here and make a few throws. Probably not supposed to be doing this, but I'm gonna walk out here and make a few throws and just kind of explain to you what you can do off the bank. And I might be legal, but I might not. So I just want to tell you that. But and when I say legal, it's not like I'm breaking some big law. If they don't want you fishing on it, they would just come and tell you, we don't want you fishing on there. But you can walk down that bank right there, and you see this bank over here has got good chunk rock on it. This bank over here is pea gravel. So it gives you two really distinctly different types of place to fish off of this bank. So you'd want to walk all the way around this cove. And you'd want to fish out in the middle of it. You'd want to fish in front of you, walking down the bank. And just, you know, fish it really, really good. And on a day like today, where we got the south wind blowing, on a day like today where you got the south wind blowing, it's really, really makes a pocket like this really, really good. But these type places exist everywhere. And any of the areas, the Corps of Engineer lakes, the Corps of Engineers does a tremendous job. Any of the Corps of Engineer lakes, they've got boat ramps, they've got campgrounds, they've got the area cleaned up where you can fish off the bank and have big stretches, hundreds and hundreds of yards that you can fish. And you get an area where the wind's blowing in, you get an area to get out of the wind if you don't like wind, and you can catch a lot of fish around these places. Fish could be on that other side also. This big giant was dead in the middle. Zoom in, Mr. Cameraman. Tighter, tighter, tighter. Not tight enough. Need to take him home, put him in my aquarium.